Hey, what's up, everybody? A couple of days ago, I made a little video about a tweet from Peter Schiff. I said I wasn't going to do much coverage on the guy, but I had to come back on this because the very next day he tweeted something else. Now, the original tweet was, and I'll read it to you, businesses and landlords are passing on rising raw material, insurance, labor, and other costs to their customers and tenants. When the Fed raises interest rates to fight inflation, the higher expense will also be passed on. So higher interest rates will result in a hotter CPI. And that's exactly what I've been explaining for a long time. And that's how it works. I mean, the cost of credit is reflected in the cost of all goods and services. And when the Fed raises rates, it raises the general price level through that interest channel. That's how it works. And I also said, like, you know, this guy for a long time, he's been saying the exact opposite, that low rates or cheap money is what fuels inflation. But now he has the correct understanding, apparently, through this comment. But then the very next day, he tweets out something completely different. He says, investors are figuring it out. The Fed will tighten monetary policy enough to prick the bubbles in speculative assets and bonds, but not enough to slow inflation. So, I mean, what is it? What is it? It's a complete flip-flop. I mean, one day he says when the Fed raises interest rates, that's going to result in a higher inflation rate, and that's the correct understanding. But then the very next day he's saying they're not going to raise it enough to squash inflation. I mean, the guy's a complete idiot. You know, one day he says one thing, the next day he says the next thing. Everything, like I said in my last video about this, is just to support the narrative of doom and gloom and disaster and the end of the world and everything's going to hell and a handbasket. There's no logic behind this whatsoever. It's whatever it is, the spin is going to be that it's going to be terrible, it's going to be horrible, and the only thing you can do is buy gold and sell the dollar. And that's basically been his spin for a long, long time. And that's actually been a terrible result. I mean, if you look at it, I think he has 5 funds, and all of them have lost money since inception. So, I mean, there it is. I mean, on the one hand, you know, he gets it right for once, saying that higher interest rates are going to feed through into a higher inflation rate, which is exactly right. But then the very next day, it's like they're not raising the rates high enough to squash inflation. Well, you just said that higher rates are going to, you know, push inflation higher, so then you come out and say, but it's not going high enough. And this is, I think this is also par for the course, not just with him, but with a lot of mainstream economics. Not that he's mainstream, but it's this kind of belief system. You know, it's not science, it's not a true understanding, it's a belief system where even if it doesn't work, then the remedy or the prescription is to keep pushing harder on the same thing. And when the result is still not there, well, what do? You keep pushing harder on the same thing. It's complete nonsense. It's idiocy. And there it is, a clear example of that. And go to his Twitter feed and see for yourself. But there's the tweets. I clipped them out for you. See you later, everyone. Bye.